Welcome to today's web seminar, How to Optimize Your Command Center. My name is Brian McElravy. I'm going to be your host and presenter for today's session. I'm the Executive VP and GM of our Corporate Security Division here at Resolver, and on behalf of Resolver Marketing, we hope you enjoyed today's session. Also joining me today is Ryan Thiessen, affectionately known as RT. He is the Director of Product for the Corporate Security Division as well. He's here to help me with questions at the end. Anything technical in nature or significantly over my head, I deflect to RT. This is a customer-based session, so everyone in here is a Resolver customer, so we're certainly sure you know who Resolver is. I see a lot of familiar names in the session and a lot of new ones as well. So with that, let me say thank you firstly for taking the time to attend today's presentation. I know everyone has busy schedules, so we certainly appreciate your time. Before we get started, just some really brief tour of the navigations for what you'll see today. Through the Zoom screen in front of you, you should see the presentation slide directly in front of you, a picture of a very handsome man on the screen. You're going to see the presentation, the PowerPoint on the screen in front of you. Later on, I'm going to be doing some demo screens and some screen share. I'm going to give you some new rules around that when I get to it. On your Zoom viewer, you should have a toolbar. That toolbar might be at the top, might be at the bottom. You just have to hover over it. When you do that, you'll see a Q&A button. As we go through the presentations, if you have any questions, we're on a one-way voice, so you can hear us, but we will not be able to hear you. So what I'll ask you to do is click the Q&A button, type in your question in the window and hit submit, and your questions will come to us. We will answer your questions mostly at the end of the session as it relates to the content. Some of the things as we go, we'll also try and get answered through the Q&A chat panel as well. Another side note, this session is being recorded, so if you have to step out, fall asleep, or otherwise just want to watch it tomorrow, the content will be available for recording tomorrow. So we have ton of stuff to get covered in an hour, so I'm going to get started with how to optimize your command center. And for today's topics, I'm mostly going to focus around the security operations group. I'm actually later on going to specifically talk about the term security operations, but mostly for today, I'm going to focus on your socks. Bright, colorful socks that come in all shapes, sizes, and varieties, but of course, we're not talking about those kind of socks. We're talking about these kind of bright socks, the Starship Enterprise style security operations center with integrated systems, flashing lights, cool high tech type security operation stuff. Or for some of you, not all socks come in flashy bright colors. Some socks perhaps are a little less bright, non-connected systems, and this is where sometimes I like to have the crowd in front of me to see the face, and people say, yeah, that's more like my sock right now. But that doesn't mean your sock can't be optimized or run more efficiently. No matter what your sock is or what flavor or color you run by your sock, the Security Operations Center is a world on its own. So if we look at the world of the Security Operations Center or SecOps or whatever you want to call it, and it goes by a million names these days. You have the OC, the Operations Center, the SOC, Security Operations Center. We have the GSOC, the Global Security Operations Center, which is a much broader global style to operations. You have the ASOC, which is an Advanced Security Operations Center, which I guess refers is better than the other ones and a little bit more advanced. We have the NSOC, which is a Network Security Operations Center. ISOC, which is not the IHOP where they sell pancakes, it's the Integrated Security Operations Center, or sometimes called the Information Security Operations Center. If you combine the NSOC and the GSOC and the ISOC together, you'll end up with a JSOC, which is a Joint Security Operations Center, which is where all groups come together for security operations happiness. Then you get into SICs. You have SICSOCs. Security information centers where you're not really responding to alarms, just ingesting information. You have IOCCs, which are incident and operation command centers. You have the VSOC, which is now a virtualized command center or security operation, which we'll talk about, or it's just the command center as we refer to it all in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is a center there to identify, respond, and manage to events that happen around our organization. Let me throw all these terms in front of you. Convergence, interoperability, common operating picture, situational awareness, integration, PSIM, we all love that term. Cloud, virtualization, where your VSOC comes from, and centralization. All common words that really came about, maybe I'll say the last 5 years, some of the last 10 when you get into operability or convergence, or kind of 10-year-old terms for making Operations Center work with other pieces around the organization. But these are actually things that are changing how we do things in a security operations center, which is how we go from, the old style stinky SOC to the much more bright and shiny VSOC and things that are controlled. So what exactly has changed? If we could be really specific and say, what really makes the change that allows us to go from an unconnected SOC to an interoperable cloud-based VSOC generating a common operating picture for situational awareness for centralized communications, really just a cool connected operation center that runs much more efficient and is optimized. A lot of things have changed, and if you sat back and thought about it or researched it a bit, you'd say, yeah, you know what, I kind of get it. So let's look at 5 or 6 things here that I see. So there's just some terms, some trends, and opinions that I'm going to share with you from my end. And I know some would disagree, some will agree, but really, let's go back in time again. Many of us probably remember these old days when the first concept of running your SOC and tracking what you did fell to paper and pen and logging your information and then putting it in a filing cabinet. And let's say, I mean, not as far back as 10 years ago, people were still doing this, and hopefully you're not doing this now. Hopefully you've advanced to at least the more advanced rendition of a log form, which was sort of Microsoft Excel or spreadsheet style, where you could take the same information and automate it, put it into software. Now, the benefit of this is you could start doing pivot tables and all kinds of fancy reports off it, which we still do through these kinds of tools. But this was sort of the first generation to say, hey, let's take that paper and pen, put it into software and automate it so we can get some stats out of it. Then we get through to something like Dispatch 5.4, a fully automated integrated command system that integrates standard operating procedures, geographic maps, alerts, priorities, and still records it all for stats and reports. So it really becomes a much more efficient and optimized way to look at data, respond to data, identify things that are happening and where they're happening. And we kind of run on the concept that, for most of the customers here, if not all, the dispatch screen is your primary screen that's sitting in front of the operator that they're watching, monitoring, and at the same time able to log what officers are doing and just make things more efficient. Now, how did we get there? What's changed in how we compute and what we did things? Well, here's another one where I'd really like to be in front of everybody. Do you remember the days when computing the old way, when the security server was the IBM computer sitting on a desk in the corner of the security office? And it was like a single device software. If you ran, if IRAMS means anything to anybody, you'd have to take the IRAMS disk and install it on the server, and you owned it and you put it on your network, the security network. And it was kind of fixed locations. If you had a location in Texas and one in Seattle and one in Toronto, you had to go and install them all as kind of separate. That's the way we used to do it. And really not all that long ago, we were still doing it that way. And I bet many on the seminar today have lived that world where the security server was your thing and you had to manage it and maintain it and install it. Whereas, in the new days, the new computing is completely different. First, generally we have a much more heavy reliance on IT groups to help us along the path to get to where we need to be. Number two, even the way we interact with data is completely different. So generally in today's world, we have many different devices that connect to our systems, where in the old days, it was just if you installed your incident reporting system, it connected only to that, and to get 2 systems to connect was an absolute beast. But now you'll have all different apps connecting to it. You'll have different devices connecting to it. So the desktop, mobile devices, phones, other systems. Of course, you get to data and software in the cloud, so that where that security server sat in the corner and was yours, now a lot of security groups move to data in the cloud, and systems in the cloud. Automatic sync, so data that moves really, really quick, and connected systems. Now you'll see I have connected systems in bold. The reason for that is because of the way we move data now. If you look at the image beside, you'll see that the arrows go both ways and actually indicate data moving in all different directions. And the concept of connected systems is really the new generation of why systems like Dispatch 5.0 can interact and communicate and integrate way better with all the other systems that we have in a command center, because we can connect to different devices, edge devices, laptops, mobile devices, in browsers, in apps, in the cloud. Things connect way, way easier. What does that mean for you? Well, it means things like old school integration, when you wanted to connect your access control system to your dispatch system, and it was kind of just this this single bar that said, okay, when this happens, send data here. Very, very limited, very non-interoperable. It's a tough word to say when you're the presenter, but interoperability is a thing where things interact with each other. And you're going to keep hearing me saying the terms interact, integrate, and communicate. And it's really a big term, because new style integration actually follows that. Because we have all different systems, we have all different devices, we have location doesn't matter anymore. Interaction and communication are a big thing. The integrate part is really just the systems connecting to each other. I can connect access control to dispatch, dispatch to mass notification, access control to video management. But where it expands is when you get into the interaction and the communication part, that systems now can talk to each other. When systems are integrated and they communicate, those systems can say, hey, I have an alert. I need you to do this now. And the systems start communicating and generating work for us. They become like soldiers behind the scenes. The interaction part comes from the humans, where when the systems start communicating, we pick up a trigger, the trigger sends it to system 2, system 2 picks it up and sends it to me and says, hey, you've got something here you need to interact with. What do you want to do? Then I click a button. That button might be on a desktop device, it might be on my phone, it might be somewhere, but it's where I've clicked a button to send a message back to the other system to say, hey, now do this. And systems keep communicating. And it's not that linear system of one-to-one anymore, it's one-to-many. Different devices, different systems, different places, different locations, and it happens lickety-split really fast. So it also changes that paradigm in the old paradigm of integration, where you had that single data-to-data connection. Hey, I have this. Okay, what do I do as the human now that I have this? New style integration gets us to this, where we have lots of devices generating lots of data. Again, that can be mobile devices, or in the case of what we're talking about today, something like access control points, life safety system points, VMS cameras that are generating data and triggers. Then you have the actual system. So different systems could be a workflow system, the dispatch system, mass notification system, whatever, the access control system. That's the piece that is collecting all the data from the devices and saying, okay, now do something. And then it interacts with people to say, now do something about it. So we end with this, that it's just not a singular interaction. It is devices, systems, and people all interacting around data. And this will keep coming back. And this is kind of what I live by and trying to explain people on how systems should work today and how they're completely different on how they worked before, is that the integrate part is we can easily connect systems to systems today with web services and different ways to connect data. In the way we compute and the way we do data now and the way we use systems now, it's much easier for people to interact with the systems, for people to interact with the data, for data to interact with devices. And this is a whole circular thing. And the interact, communicate, integrate becomes a very important part of how you run your security operations center, because that's how we want it to work. We want all of our systems to interact with each other. We shouldn't have to have different systems non-connected and going to each one to get a work job done. So how do I put all of this together for you? So let's take the concept that you have a new way of doing things, and you run a security operations center, and you have an access control system and life safety systems and video management systems, and you have someone sitting and watching, and they're sitting there to do something, right? If we look at the process of incident management. Now, this is the very, very simplified version. Under each square, there'd be another 10 squares with different workflows. But for the simplicity of it, you'll see I've quoted process, because this is one of the things you do in a command center, is the process of incident management, that you plan and prepare what types of things will happen and how will we react when it happens. Next, identify, evaluate, prioritize. So when that thing happens that we've planned for, we have to evaluate it and say, yep, this is real, it's fake, it's high priority, low priority. We have to get to a point where we say, okay, what do we do and how do we do it and what do we have to do? That's going to base on operating procedures, situational understanding, and everything you did in plan and prepare to get to respond and manage. We have this event. Now what do we do? Is it an active shooter or is it an alarm? At the end, we document, we report and analyze, and I'll show you the importance of that after. But what I want to get to is that word process, because when we're talking about security operations and the security operations group, and in a lot of the SOCs that we get to see and groups that we get to work with, when you nail down the term security operations group, if you are the building operations group, you'd have a certain thing you need to do. If you're the security operations group, you have a different thing that you need to do. And I like these little, I'd have to ask Jen, our marketing team member we have with us today, what you call, I think they're called pictograms or something like that. But these are really cool things that I like, because they take a single word like operations and they say, here's a whole bunch of words that depict what operations should be. And when you dig into these a little bit, they actually make sense. Like when you look at operations, the ones that stick out for me in here are optimize, process, management, and decision. So when you optimize your process to drive management and decisions, that's how you should run your operation. Now, there's another one in here called BPM. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with BPM or how BPM works or what it is. But really, BPM is business process management. And when you look at operations in respect to BPM and what it is, it's basically when you have an input, it's the combination of people, technology, methodologies, and process to get to a desired output. So to look at it a different way, it's kind of optimizing how you can make decisions for action with the combination of technologies that are combined together with your methodologies and the people involved. If we were to look at the goal of a command center, which is our number one goal, is simply preparedness and execution. No matter what happens, high priority, low priority, big or small, it's to be prepared for it and execute on it properly. And certain things we get from it, which are understand what's going on, communicate and inform to other people what we have on the go, respond and manage the organization through the event, and most importantly, be efficient about it. Really what you're talking about is business process management on the security operations side, running things much more efficiently, running things with good return on investment. But some of these pieces like situational understanding, you'll see I don't have situational awareness on there. Situational awareness is, hey, I have something on the go. In a command center, you actually need situational understanding that what is on the screen in front of you makes sense to you. You understand what you're looking at. You can take the situation and not just be aware that it's happening, but understand all the components. What is on the go? Where is it happening? Where are my people that are responding? Where are they positioned? Who has been informed? Who are we communicating with? What's going on? So business process management to me is a huge part of the security operations, and really it's talking about being efficient and optimizing. But this is really at Resolver and the corporate security group, what we are trying to cure, and it's a very common illness in command centers. It happens all the time. It's not hard to diagnose when you go into a command center. It's called OCS, and it stands for Operator Chair SWIVEL'ITIS. And this is the common illness of when you go into a command center and you see the operator that is running dispatch with access control and life safety systems and video management and email and all these things on the go. And when something comes in, they have to swivel their chair in 4 different directions to look at a whole bunch of different screens, to talk to a bunch of different people to understand what's going on and get a job done. Operator chair SWIVEL'ITIS is Very easy to cure, and for us, it really comes down to what we call dispatch optimization. When we go back to the beginning of interoperability and PSIM and all these things of how we're trying to get things to be more efficient, for us, we take the approach that dispatch is the screen in front of most operators, no matter where you look in a corporate security setting, in a 911 center. You're looking at a screen that tells you what is going on and where are my resources relative to that. So we try and curb OCS with dispatch optimization, integrating, interacting, and communicating your dispatch system with all the other systems that you have around you. And we're going to take you through how we do that. And what we want to do today is, a lot of you are not familiar with a lot of the new tools we have at Resolver on the corporate security side. So number one is a tool called Connect 2.0. This is basically an integration engine that we're going to walk you through to show you how we connect to systems like access to control, to make you more efficient, to make you more optimized, to save you time, and to get rid of operator chair SWIVEL'ITIS. So what is Connect? If you're not familiar with Connect at all, I'm going to run you through some demos, but just to give you a really brief introduction, Connect is a module that uses tools that we call connectors, and the connectors pull event and device data directly from security source systems. So that could be access control systems, video management, whatever it might be. We connect to them and we pull that information in. I'll show you how that works. Devices are then mapped to a floor plan within Connect, so we can actually see where an alarm is occurring based on a floor plan. Then what we do is we combine rules with the events to determine what actions we'll take when an alarm is triggered from that source system. Let's say it's the access control system in this case. Then we automate actions, and those actions could be, hey, when this happens, create a dispatch. When this happens, create an alarm. When this happens, just create an activity. So when you hear all those words and you see all the words I have underlined, the reason I do that is because when I take you into Connect, you're actually going to see those words repeated. So on the first screen, once we go in, you'll see the 5 boxes at the top, or the 5 buttons at the top, and the first one is connectors. That's where we'll list the connectors that are connecting to your system. So in this sample, it's an example only, this is the Linnell on-guard connector. So we'll see in here we have my access control system, we have the dispatch connector, we have the Linnell demo box connector. So that just tells me this is the connector that we have in our system. Then the next thing is devices. Connectors bring in or pull the device information. So when you connect to a Linnell system, it will go out and say, give me all the devices that are out there and suck them into this system so I can see them all. And then we set a location to them. I'm not going to take you through this in a demo. This is just to give you an introduction. Once you pull in the devices, then we're going to map them. We're going to say this device is located right here at this location at this door. Once we do that, we then take all the event types. So anyone familiar with access control devices or other devices knows that each single device can have actual multiple events that are tied to it. So one access control edge device can have door forced open, access denied, unauthorized access, any different type of event tied to that single device. So we're going to haul in all the event types. But what's really most important to us is the rules engine, where we say, here's a rule I want to create. When this happens, if this event happens and it equals this, or this, and this, and this, and this, that's what I want you to watch for. And here's what I want you to do when that rule happens. And again, this is the action. What do you want us to do when we find it? It's going to trigger that alarm. And you're going to see the real sheer power of Connect and how quick it is and how powerful it is. So when you have an alarm, instead of having operator chair SWIVEL'ITIS, that the alarm comes in, you look at your access control system, you say, okay, I have an alarm. I have to look at it on the map. Okay, now I have to create a dispatch. And think of the time creating a dispatch. We have to go and hit create, go through 4 or 5 drop-down lists to then hit create. You're probably talking, we found on average 30 to 45 seconds is a good response time. We're going to show you how this pops up in literally half a second. It's on your call screen. You can see it on the map exactly where it is. You have your officers available, and how quick it really is. The other thing I'm going to show you in the demo is we have a brand new section in Dispatch 5.0, and many of you might not even be familiar with Dispatch 5.0 and a lot of the things you can do. But one of the things we've added in what's called version 5.4 that's coming out, if you look at the top bar, there's a piece now that we have called alarms. And what alarms do is that intermediary piece where we can say, all right, I've had a door force open alarm trigger. I don't want to dispatch anyone yet because I don't know if it's a real alarm or not. I need to look at this and vet it. So it's like it's an alarm handler. I mean, we're not sucking in every single alarm that goes off. These are ones that we're saying, bring this in front of the dispatcher, let them vet it. And you'll see down below, there's some new buttons that go with it where you can acknowledge the alarm. You can close it right out from there. You can escalate it to a new dispatch, and I'll show you how all this works. But alarms is kind of a new concept we brought in simply because of the Connect integration engine, where people were bringing alarms directly into dispatch, and they're saying, hey, like I need to vet some of these alarms before they go to dispatch. So we've built this, and it's a really cool tool, and we'll show you how that works. So with all that gobbledygook, I'm going to now show you Dispatch 5.0 a bit and a demo of Connect. So I'm going to drop out here. And RT, can you just give me the green light that you see the prospective main screen right now on IE? Just so I know, share.
You're good to go.
Okay, so those who are not familiar with the Perspective and Dispatch 5 series, login is a bit different. You go to this main master page, log into dispatch. So I'm going to call up the main dispatch page. Now, as we go through this part of the demo, one thing to bear in mind with Dispatch 5.0 series is that it works on panels. And as I go through, things are going to be popping up in panels, and I'll have to move some data around to make it look better. It's designed for multi-monitor efficiency, multi-monitor optimization, so you can have multiple panels open. You can see lots going on the go. The way I have it set up right now, just to start, is to give you a pose of familiarity to those who might be using dispatch log, which is I have my call stack on the top, or what I call the call deck, and down below we have our officers and their locations. Now there's a lot more to Dispatch 5.0 than dispatch log, but this is a base setup that you'd say, okay, I get this, I'm familiar with this. There's calls on the go, there's officers on the go. This is a lot like dispatch log. I'm going to add in one piece for you now, just to give this a little bit more flavor. I'm going to slide a piece over here, and I'm going to pin this little map piece. I'm going to take my officer panel, and I'm going to pin it here. I'm going to pin it here. Thank you. For a different view. Now this view is a little different because we now see a map on the go. Now what you're looking at on that location map is up on what I call the call deck. So look in the top left box, you'll see the blue highlighted call is a security response alarm intrusion at the Dallas Convention Center. So this is from the ASIS convention a couple weeks ago. On the map to the right, you'll see the exact location of that alarm. You'll see it flashing in red because it's a high priority alarm. If we went through the rest of the calls, you'd see that the AT&T Stadium actually has an alarm on the go. It's indicated by the green alarm on the go. So this starts to give you some very, very basic situational understanding. I can see the call on the go. I can see the location where it is. And what's important is how these calls got here, that these calls came in through Connect, automated within a split second. What I'm showing you here is just so when I go to generate the call, you say, hey, I don't understand these screens. What on earth is going on here? So you have your call deck screen, and then you have what we call your location screen. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the officer panel here. I want to get rid of it because I want to open up that alarm panel. So I'm just going to take the officer screen here. I'm going to put it on auto hide. So you'll see I have lots of bottom right screen, and my officers are just up here on the top up there. That'll come down anytime I hover over it. So they're still there. They're not hidden. It's just on auto hide. What I do want to show you now is this new alarm section because it's very important. So I'm going to click on the alarms panel. That will open up here, and I'll pin that one to the bottom. So now we're looking at two distinctly separate things. The top calls are dispatches on the go. The bottom ones are alarms that have been received from the source system and tell us this is where that alarm is. Now, this is that intermediary part between getting something to a dispatch for alarm handling. So you'll see on the right that we have a different alarm. It has a yellow band around it indicating a medium priority alarm, gives us the exact location. And down below it gives us the, what do I do with this alarm? Do I want to escalate this to a dispatch? Do I want to just close this out? Do I want to add a comment to it that's sure I'm not really sure what's going on? It's got an alert on it for a bit. I can reset the alert on it. Whatever we might want to do with this alarm. I'm going to probably just close this one out. We'll get rid of it. We'll say this was canceled. So this is where you get into really basic alarm handling for the event. Oh, I should comment on that one then. We'll escalate it. There we go. So what I want to take you through now is how we get these calls onto the screen and how quick it is. So what I'm going to do is actually stop sharing this, and I'm going to move down to a different share, because I'm going to take you through the Connect screen to show you how we get to certain places. Okay, RT, can you just give me the green light that you now see that login screen?
Yeah, go ahead and log in.
Okay, so now we've moved from dispatch. Now Connect is a separate tool that is still accessed through your user account. So I use the same user account as I did through dispatch. And now I'm into Connect, the live version. So right on this main screen under connectors, you'll see there are two connectors. One is called the dispatch connector, which is a piece that is included in Connect and helps connect and bind dispatch to other systems. The other connector is called the Demo Connector 54 ASIS. So this is a mock access control system that we built for doing demos. If you had Secure 9000, it would be Secure 9000 connector, Linnell on Guard connector. You might have multiple, you might have Secure West, Secure East, different connectors. But I have a green light just telling me that I have this connector going. So basically what this means is dispatch and Connect and the source system, the access control system, are connected and communicating. When they communicate, when I go to devices, you'll see that it is now bringing in every single device that we have laid out in the field. So you might have 10, you might have 100, you might have 10,000, you might have 100,000. As you see on the top, there's an import device section if we have to do some particular mapping, but this is brought in every single device that we have on the go. Some simple steps from here. This can be really high level. You'll see that all devices have locations tied to them. That's so we can map the device. I'll show you how that works. If I come down to, let's say, we'll do 45 and 46. Remember those numbers because they become important. And I say set location. We're going to grab the location index from dispatch. And if I do, let's do West Campus, and we'll put these at maybe building, we'll go building 25, BWL1, and save them. So those devices, 45 and 46, are now tied to that location in that particular wing. If they were both panic alarms, I could add tags that say, okay, let's make sure we add panic alarms to those so we know what they are. Exterior panic alarms. So that's all I've done. The next step would be, hey, let's get those alarms on the map. So when you move to device mapping, you'll see how easy this tool really is. If I pick the location, which if I recall correctly was this one, you'll see it's giving me those two devices, 405, 406. Now what I have to do is map them to the location. So when I go to map them, come on you, oops. So I'm going to take the icon, and let's say that particular one is right on this door. I'll drop it on the door. Now these can be resized, they can be turned, whatever you need to do. Make that one smaller. So now we know when that alarm gets triggered by any type of event, we know the exact location. Then you go through and lay out whatever device points you want. Now, in ours, you don't have to lay out every single all 100,000 devices. We're looking at the ones that you say, when these ones happen, they are more important than the average, the 6,000 door forced opens you get every day. So now that that one's mapped, we know that door 405 is mapped. I can map 406. When we go to event types, we look at, we say, here's all the different event types that can happen. What do we do with these types of event types? Well, here, there's not a lot you have to do. All the work and all the fun stuff happens in the rules engine. The rules engine is what tells us, hey, you have all those devices out there. They're mapped to all these locations, and we have these different types of events that can happen. What do you want us to watch for? So you see here, we have 4 different types of rules we've created. Door forced open off hours, so between these hours of the day in the lower bowl. And what we want you to do is when you find it, create a dispatch right away. So in this particular rule, we want to dispatch forced right up on the screen, skip everything else, get someone rolling to that call. The next 3 you'll see we have access granted off hours, raise an alarm, another one that raises an alarm. So let's just see what these look like if you want to create a new one. To create a new rule, really easy. We'll call this webinar sample. The priority is important because this takes a little bit of explaining. I won't get too in depth, but it's how it looks at each individual alarm when it has sort of duplicate or similar type criteria. Now the criteria screen down below, really easy to use. You say, okay, if this happens and what I want to start with, and you'll see all the different things that come from Connect that we can use. If I said, all right, this is going to be, I'm going to look for event types that equal tamper. And you could keep adding, or equals, door forced open, or starts with this, or adds this. You could add as many as you want. And then you get into and statements. So if it's a tamper and it also happens between these hours or is at this particular, location. So if we went and we said, let's say the device location, I'll pick the one which was what we picked, which was West BWL1, right there. So, and I can keep adding, or it happens at that location and a different location, and it's between this time and that time. So you go through all the different scenarios of what you want in your rule. Then you're going to add the action. What do I want it to do? Create a dispatch, force an alarm, acknowledge the alarm. So these are the things that drive what Connect is going to do. It's actually really, really simple. It's really easy to set up, and it works really, really well. So the obvious next step for me, past this, is to go back and show you how this works. So I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to go back to my dispatch sharing. And that is going to be, I think, this one. Okay, RT, you want to give me the green light? Make sure I have things running properly here.
Green light.
Green light. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger an alarm. So we have a fake access control box and everything set up here. I'd normally get RT to go and kick in a door or smash a window down the hall, but the office neighbors were getting mad. So we set up a fake box out here with all different things we can do. So the first thing I can do is I'm going to publish an alarm. So the alarm box, remember, is on the bottom. And as soon as I trigger that box, you'll see, bam, there it is. So I just hit one. You'll see it came up at AT&T Stadium. Now you'll see it flashing. I'm going to do I'll do another one. I'm going to trigger that right now. There it is. You'll see how quick it is. I mean, it is really, really quick. And that's that integration, that communication thing where where the host system has said, swipe this card and something's going to happen. Well, what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to look at the rule. And the rule says I have to create an alarm. Now, as an operator, I have the alarm. I can see where the alarm is by the green flashing dot. My next step is, what do I have to do? Now, depending on your organizational process, your business process management, your alarm is going to say, okay, in this case, look at the video, or at least acknowledge the alarm so we know you have it. So if I hit acknowledge, that sends a note back to the host system saying, okay, turn the alarm off. It's acknowledged. So you'll see it's gone now to a solid state green. It's acknowledged. What's the next step for an operator? It could be, hey, I've checked it. It's nothing. I can close it out. I'll take you through the escalation part. Let's say, hey, we found something important here. I'm going to escalate this to a new dispatch. So when I escalate this, you'll see a new dispatch pop up on the screen right there, really quick. Now we have this dispatch tied to this alarm. As you go through the process, each piece that you work through will be related to the other. So what I mean by that is when I close this dispatch out, that alarm will close out as well. Any one of the other alarms, you just close them out, you comment them, you acknowledge them. Now I'm going to take you through one other one. So we have 5 dispatches on the go right now. Let's say we have a a door forced open after hours and we want to skip the alarm process, go straight to dispatch, that's the one I just triggered there. So as soon as that door forced open happened, as soon as the door opens, that pops right up on the dispatcher screen. Now think of the time savings here. If that came in as a call or came in through the access control system and you had to start the call, you'd have to hit this create button, create your new dispatch, go through the create screen, add all of your fields, then hit create. You're talking again 35 to 45 seconds, and you still have to manage the alarm and acknowledge it and do things. Now multiply that 35 seconds times, let's say some people get 25 or 100 or 1,000 alarms a day. You're talking an incredible amount of time savings. You're talking a lot more optimization. You're talking a lot more efficiency, and you're talking way less operator chair swivelitis because you don't have to go over to the chair or to the access control system, find the alarm, swing back, find the map, then start a dispatch, then swing back and look, hey, what was that location? What was it? BW25, level 2, something or other. Everything connected, everything instantaneous. Now from here, depending on your business process management, what do we need to do? Do we need to send out notifications, follow the SOP? Dispatch officers, don't forget we have our officers all sitting up here waiting, saying, hey, send me, send me, send me. Now you have the combination of the alarm, what's happening, where it's happening, where are my officers, who do I send? Much more efficient, much more optimized for a command center tool. And when you look at Connect, people say, well, isn't it kind of PSIM-ish and interoperable? And it is, but the difference is Connect is optimized for dispatch. It's made to make your dispatch process, your alarm management process tied to dispatch way more efficient, way more optimized. So I'm going to kind of leave the demo at that. There's lots more things we can show you. Is there anything I missed on the demo, RT? Anything flashy that I should be showing?
No, that looked really good, and there's a lot of other features coming in 5.4, which we can communicate very soon.
Right on. All right, so let's get back here. All right, you should see the presentation screen back up in front of you. A few more things that I want to run you through that become important as part of this. So I showed you the process of incident management before, which is plan and prepare. So hey, where are my devices? What alarms would I want to respond to? Which ones require an automatic dispatch? Which ones do I want to send to an alarm handler to look at? That's the identify, evaluate, prioritize, and plan and prepare all tied together. Respond and manage is when it happens. Okay, I have that alarm. It's gone to the alarm panel. I can see it on the map. Here's my steps. Or it goes to dispatch. This little guy here, document, report, and analyze. So again, two things here. Number one, think of the time savings of getting reports into the system. So think of it of this aspect. Door forced opens that happen between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Well, how many of those are we actually going to dispatch out? Probably not very many, because let's say we get 200 in a day. Let's say 50% of those we actually want to send to the alarm handler. So let's say you have 250 door forced opens a day. Well, how much time does it take to actually document and respond and document every single door forced open that happened? Lots of time. And do you want to do it? No, no one wants to do it. But with Connect, one of your rules or your actions is send to activity. So everyone you get still creates an activity report, so you're able to do stats, plus you stat on the ones that you're actually responding to. So that becomes hugely important from the document aspect and time savings. Number two, when you look at how do I start analyzing what's going on, a lot of alarm systems and different event type systems, if you try to take your access control plus your life safety system or your fire alarms and started trying to do different types of stats, it's really hard to group them all together and get them to run properly together for stats. So the first thing it's going to do is, one, it makes it easier for you to collect alarm data and then start presenting alarm data. This is one fashion taken by one of our customers, and I believe this went into Tableau or a different type of system than another type here of saying, hey, here's different types of alarms and things we have on the go. So we all know that the number one step to actually to be able to get to this data is the collection of data. So that collection of data starts with, hey, I have this access control system. I have 5,000 of these things happen a year. But what are those things? How do you collect them? How do you get them in the system without having people say, I don't want to have to type that in 5,000 times? Well, automate it, integrate it, get the systems communicating. Then you can start drawing the stats. So you remove the aspect of manual input, you increase your optimization, you increase your efficiency, you get systems integrating, communicating, and interacting with us as the human, plus you curb operator chair swivelitis. So if you're curious, all right, how does this little Connect Monkey set up? It doesn't really matter to us where this goes. So we have customers that use our hosted service, so Perspective and Dispatch are hosted by us, plus you have your access control system on premise. We have customers that have both their access control, video, life safety on premise, along with Perspective on premise. It all works the same, but it all doesn't matter. If we're hosting it and your access control's on premise, or everything's on premise, or let's say you're a Brevo customer and you have everything hosted, that's fine too. Basically, all of the connectors, all of the APIs, the message queues, things that send data, the things that integrate, communicate, and interact with each other can be hosted or on premise. So that's all this screen is meant to depict. It's also a high-level architecture for techie type in the crowd that say, okay, I wonder how this thing works. I know some people are interested in the dispatch API and how the message queue works, things like that. We can discuss that further as we go. When we look at performance ranges, so when you get into, let's say, PSIM type and how fast should things work and what do they do, this engine is actually hugely powerful. Now, when we first built this, we still maintain that we don't think everybody wants every single alarm coming into here. You might, that's entirely up to you. But this was more for ones that had to go into a dispatcher's hand all the time. And when we did that, we said, you know what, there are customers that have, hundreds of thousands of devices. So we better be able to support millions of devices. And since each device can have, different types of events per device, we better be able to handle like 5 types of events per device. So 5 million event types over all these floor plans, total rule complexity of 500 at 10 deep level location. I mean, this is pretty complex stuff. And what it gets down to is when you have really complex rules with 10 level deep location at total rules of 500 over 1 million devices, you're still looking at being able to process about 15,000 events per minute. So depending on how many alarms you intake per minute, we're looking at a Connect system that can do about 15,000 a minute over a really complex rules engine over millions of devices. So anything less than this is actually going to run pretty quick. So we just wanted to put that in front of you. Let me jump to the nuts and bolts of I'm sure what people might be interested in. So what's the difference between Connect and optimizing dispatch, and why is this better for you? Well, we know some of the systems that are out on the market, generally if we call them PSIM, are hugely expensive, but they're expensive for a reason. They have significantly more advanced functions. They're designed to connect, multi-agency type things. What we're trying to do here is simplify and optimize dispatch for you to different systems. So the way we do it is when you have dispatch 5.0, Connect is included. We give you Connect. Connect is not something that you have to buy. The engine is behind the scenes. You get that included in your command center software pack. What we do charge for are the individual connectors that you have to connect to, and then individual devices that have to connect. So the base price is $7,500 a year per connector. So let's say it was a Secure connector. It would be $7,500 a year to have that connector, and that includes your first 500 devices. So if you have Secure and you have 400 devices, it'd be $7,500 a year. If you have 4 Secure systems, or let's say you're multi-group, one group has Secure and one group has Blinell or AMEG, you'd be $7,500 a year per connector plus your first 500. Any additional devices, if you have another 1,000 devices, we sell devices in buckets of 500. So you need another 500 devices. So for attending today and for the rest of the the year, we're going to change this pricing a bit for you. That the connector price for your first connector, because we really want to drive adoption into Dispatch 5.0, get people on these connectors, we're going to drop that down to $3,500. And also your bucket, if you have lots of devices, we're going to drop that over in half down to $1,750 for additional buckets of 500. So if you're interested in getting this quoted out, the next step on how do I get into, I'm going to skip this here and go to this one is what I should have done. How do you get started with Connect? So number one, reach out to your account manager. If you don't know who your account manager is, don't worry. They'll be in touch with you tomorrow with the recording and saying, hi, I see you attended. We have this deal. If for some reason that doesn't happen and the account manager directs to someone else in your organization, hit us at hello@resolver.com. Mention the webinar and you'll get that discount. So to kind of start wrapping up and get into the questions towards the end here, a couple things I just want you to keep in mind. This is all about dispatch optimization. Connect is built and Dispatch 5.0 are meant to be a command center software. We're looking for what's happening, where is it happening, where can I see it, where are my resources, and then the time savings and your ROI. We've always recognized that the entry of data is really the tough part to things like dispatch. When you connect it and you automate it and you integrate it, you can really do fabulous things a lot quicker, a lot better. So that concept of interact, integrate, communicate is a thing that I want those three words to stick with you. And the idea of connected systems. We all want our systems connected and talking to each other, but you really have to have a focal point of what's the main point where I want this to come into. So people will give that single pane of glass thing. I really don't think there is one single pane of glass you'll ever have. You're always going to have multiple panes. But you don't want to have to be window flopping and swiveling your chair around and doing things. So you want to get to tighter integrated systems. So let's see here. This is how you can contact us. And the next thing is questions. So, go back to the questions window. I'm going to leave it up here just so we can, you can contact us. All right, I'll start going through some of the questions here. Okay, so for OCS, there is not, I guess the solution we've put in front of you to cure OCS is an integration system. You can also buy chairs that don't swivel. That would work, but they're just going to drag the chair around on the carpet. Can we get video VMS into Resolver? For example, device alarm goes off and a video populates in accordance with the device. Yep, that's the next step, and is in the plan. It's still the natural evolution of how you should look at things. When you have an alarm go off and you want to see video, there's all different ways to see video, look at video. Connect the location data to video. Also remember, a lot of video cameras actually generate alarms now. So when you have, let's say, a motion sensor in front of a camera, or certain cameras that might be watching a bag on a subway platform and they say, hey, that bag's still there, generate an alarm. You also want to tie some of those events into Connect. So don't just look at video from the true stare at the screen aspect, but the connection to video trigger points as well. What happens to alarm records that aren't escalated to dispatch? Okay, so there's a good question. So you have alarms that come into the control panel or into the alarm panel. And let's say you get 3 that they pop up and the operator says, oh, no, this is fake. I'm just going to close this. Basically what happens is when you close the alarm record in dispatch, that alarm record now becomes an activity report. So that's how we start generating stats. Sends a note back to the source system that says, hey, this whole thing, this whole dealio is closed. Turn off the alarm, acknowledge the alarm, close that alarm down, take it off your source system screen, get rid of it, please, because we're done over here. So The reason I use those terms is just working on the integrations with Secure or Linnell. Linnell calls it closing. Another one doesn't call it closing. So they all use different terms on how they do it. So basically, when you have these things that come into the alarm panel, you say, I don't want to create a dispatch, it does still create an activity report, which then gives you the ability to create stats off of those alarms. So it's actually, again, that really, really good way for you to bring in alarm data, look at it, vet it before it becomes a dispatch. And if it becomes nothing, don't make it nothingness. Take that alarm, turn it into an activity report. You then have that report there. You can then do stats on it. And then the same thing, if it gets escalated to a dispatch, you go through the dispatch process, collect more data. When you close that out, closes the alarm, takes it over, also creates an activity record. So now you have the full process of how it came from an alarm to connect, to dispatch, closed, done. Way more efficient, really, really, really quick. Do we require an API from the connected source as well? RT, I'm going to ask you to step in. Mark, I'm going to say off the top, you don't, we require the API from that source as well. Then we build the connector to that. So when you buy the connector, you've sort of bought the API that connects everything together. RT, do you want to jump in and just make sure I have that right?
Yeah, we're leveraging the APIs from those partner systems. If they are charging to turn them on, though, you may need to work with the vendor on that. For instance, Linnell's data conduit is one. Secure, on the other hand, is just a plugin. I think you still need to request it to be added to your license, but I don't believe they're charging for that. It just has to be enabled, so that plugin runs, and that's just a way to protect random plugins from running on your system.
Okay, I hope that helps. The next question is from an anonymous attendee, but I'm going to ask you to maybe expand. It says, how is the Connect system better than P2000 operations system? I'm not familiar with what P2000 operations systems is, so it's tough for me to answer that. RT, are you, any idea?
Only if that's referring to PPM 2000 operation systems.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure. I thought that might be it, but I wasn't sure what operation systems that might be referring to. So could the person asking the question want to send that back to me again, or say, hey, just more information, this is what I'm asking. To get Connect, again, just contact us on the screen in front of you, any way, shape, or form, or when your account manager reaches out. We can also give you a more in-depth demo. I mean, we showed you fairly high level today, but we can go through more in depth on how Connect works, and direct questions of what about this, what about that, and get more into the details there. You do need dispatch 5.3. Is that the earliest you would need, RT?
Yep, 5.3.1, which came out in the spring there. So that is available now.
Yeah, so a couple things. So users going from dispatch log to dispatch 5.0. As you can see, dispatch 5.0 series is, I call it significantly similar, yet significantly different. As you saw when I started up, you can make it look like dispatch log. You can have the call deck up, the officer deck up. You basically have dispatch log running. Of course, there's a lot more to it. There's scheduling. There's different types of maps. There's officer mobile devices, so you can see where officers are on a map. You can send calls to the officer on their mobile device. So first step would be going from dispatch log to dispatch 5.0. And that requires some thought process, because there are some different ways you have to do your location lists, things like that. Then after that, you'd have getting into Connect. You'd have to have your dispatch 5 set up properly before you move into Connect, and go from there. And we'll help you through that all the way through. So let me get the question screen back up here. It's a little after 2, so I don't want to. Okay, so we have, how is the Connect system better than the PPM 2000 system? still curious which system. So Connect is different from older systems in that if we went back to, let's say, IRAMS, because of the technology IRAMS was built on, it was really hard to integrate to. We had a couple integrations, but it was kludgy, clunky bear. When you get into the perspective, let's say 1 series through 4.5 series, we had some good integrations in there, but they were more direct integrations where the systems were directly talking to each other's databases, and there was different database work that had to be done. I think the technology with Dispatch 5.0 is a lot better, and I'll have RT talk about things called WebSockets and how it communicates and things like that. But Connect allows us to move data a lot quicker. There was actually, I think I missed a screen in here that, no, I did show the layout. Let me go back up here. So RT, do you want to talk about some of the parts here of why the REST API and the RabbitQ and how this all works is sort of newer and better now than it was in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the first thing was the dispatch log that maybe a lot of people are familiar with was built, really just as a single dispatcher or 2 or 3 dispatchers working together. And what we found over the last 5-6 years since that had come out is that the security operations centers and everything that Brian had spoke about has really grown and expanded. And now we're not just dealing with 2 or 3 guys in a room looking after a couple buildings. You're dealing really worldwide scales, maybe multiple operation centers. So having things built the way Dispatch Log, which was focusing on a much smaller scale of things, moved us into the new Dispatch with 5.0. And as we built out, everything was built through this new central services that uses the REST API, so we can host that, let these servers do a lot of work for us. And that has really opened up all this integration capability there because everything is centralized, all the rules are sort of validated, and really what your dispatchers are doing is interacting with the data, and the servers is making sure that everybody stays in sync and everybody has the latest information. So you don't have to worry about coordinating that with a smaller team. One of the things we've added in here is that message queue on the side of Connect, which is really just it's there for redundancy. So as all of these events happen, and when we're saying things like 15,000 a minute, we're thinking of very large companies that deal with maybe warehouses or tons of stores where you've got those clock in and clock out times where pretty much most of your staff is coming and going at about the same time of day. That's your highest volumes. So when you're dealing with things like that, you want a system that can just ingest all of that information and then work through it as quickly as possible. And that's what those message queues allow us to do, to make sure we don't miss an important event and make sure that we can handle those surges and those volumes as necessary. But because it's all centralized, we can make sure that it follows the same business rules, it uses the same templates, it makes sure that everybody gets updated all at the same time, which is why you see it happen so quickly on Brian's machine.
Okay, I hope that, thanks RT, that's a great explanation. I hope I answered your question. We're coming up on 3:05 and we're getting people starting to drop off. So we're going to end the session again. Any more questions? You want another demo? You want to get into this in way more depth? Reach out to us. Account manager will reach out. But whatever way, if you want to see it, we're more than happy to show you this. We really want to get people onto this because we believe dispatch is an important tool. We truly believe that getting it better optimized is better for everyone in every way, shape, or form. It's better for dispatchers. So they don't have to manually enter stuff. They have much better situational understanding. You drive stats. So we really think it's an important tool for people. We're trying to make it really affordable for people to get into this sort of thing. So give us a shout. Again, thanks for your time today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation. We hope you enjoyed the tips, the trends, the terms, the opinions, and all of that goes with it. And we will look forward to seeing you at our next webinar for the corporate security group. So on behalf of myself, RT, and Jen in marketing and her team, thanks very much for attending. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much, folks. Goodbye.